Calling in a Divine Counterpart, Part 3. Ease is a skill, not a fantasy. This essay is part 3 of a 5-part series exploring what it actually means to be ready to call in a divine counterpart. In Part 1, I question the longing itself, why, if healing is internal, the desire for partnership still persists, and how culturally we confuse fate with readiness. In Part 2, I explore safety as a felt experience, not a decision, and the ways our nervous systems determine what we recognize as love long before our minds do. As a transition doula, I support people through moments of profound change, relationship endings, identity shifts, spiritual initiations, and seasons where old maps no longer work. Again and again, love sits at the center of these transitions, not as a goal, but as a mirror revealing what we've learned to tolerate, pursue, or avoid. This part of the series turns towards something quieter, and for many of us, far more uncomfortable: ease. Why ease feels untrustworthy. After safety, the next thing many of us struggle to recognize is ease. Not excitement or chemistry or intensity, but the absence of strain. Ease doesn't announce itself. It doesn't create urgency. It doesn't demand our attention. And for those of us who learned love through effort, adaptation, or endurance, ease can feel unsettling, sometimes even wrong. We've been taught subtly and repeatedly that relationships are supposed to take work, that difficulty is inevitable, that friction is proof of depth. Over time, struggle becomes evidence that something meaningful is happening. If it's hard, it must matter. If it hurts, it must be important. If it requires constant effort, it must be love. So when a relationship feels calm, when communication is simple, when there's no emotional chess game to solve, when no one is bracing for impact, it can feel suspicious, like something essential is missing. How culture reinforces the myth of struggle. This belief doesn't form in a vacuum. It's reinforced constantly by the stories we consume. Reality shows like Love is Blind and Married at First Sight are built on the premise that love is proven through difficulty, that accelerated intimacy, emotional friction, and constant conflict are not just normal, but necessary. In these narratives, ease is rarely trusted. If things are going well, someone begins to search for problems. Doubt is introduced, tension is manufactured, the relationship must be tested in order to be real. The underlying message is subtle but powerful. If love isn't hard, it isn't deep. And so many of us internalize this long before we ever name it. When ease threatens identity. What I'm noticing in this season of my own life is that ease doesn't just change how relationships feel, it changes who we are allowed to be inside them. When love is easy, there is less to manage, less to fix, less to anticipate. And if your identity has been shaped around caretaking, emotional labor, or being the one who holds everything together, ease can feel disorienting. Who are you when nothing is required of you? Ease asks us to rest in presence rather than performance, to receive without earning, to trust without monitoring. For many of us, that level of openness feels more vulnerable than struggle ever did. This is often where people unconsciously destabilize healthy relationships, not because they want chaos, but because their nervous systems equate effort with intimacy. Calm is not the absence of desire. One of the most common confusions I hear is the belief that calm equals boredom, that consistency signals a lack of passion, that regulation means emotional distance. But calm is not the absence of desire, it is desire without anxiety. Ease doesn't flatten intimacy, it deepens it by removing fear from the equation. The nervous system doesn't need to spike in order to bond, it needs to feel safe enough to stay. This is why learning to tolerate ease is a practice. Because staying present when nothing is wrong, when there's no problem to solve, no rupture to repair, no dynamic to decode, can feel unfamiliar and even uncomfortable at first. Ease as capacity we learn. Ease is not something love gives us automatically. It's something we develop the capacity to allow. We practice it by noticing where we rush, where we over-explain, where we try to earn steadiness instead of trusting it. We practice it by staying when connection feels simple, by resisting the urge to manufacture depth through difficulty. Ease is not the absence of growth. It is growth without suffering as the entry point. Without this capacity, even the most aligned partnership will feel exhausting. With it, love becomes sustainable. A goddess for this threshold. As we learn to trust ease, I call in Demeter, she who understands seasons and rhythms. She reminds us that growth does not happen through force alone and that rest is not failure. She teaches us that nourishment is not indulgence and that love, like the earth, must sometimes lie fallow in order to bear fruit. May we learn to trust what feels steady. May we stop mistaking struggle for depth. May we allow love to meet us without resistance. If this essay resonated, you're invited to continue the series by liking and subscribing. Also, learn more at www.goddessintraining.online.